My name's Philippa Fisher and I'm from Oby and Wigston Borough Council. With the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, we commenced an aggressive communication and information programme with the general public regarding guidance and how we can help stop the transmission of the virus. It's clear that those who have been diagnosed with COVID-19 are affected in many different ways. I would now like to introduce you to Paul Robbins, who works within the borough. Paul is going to explain to us what happens when you are diagnosed with the virus. Paul, when were you first diagnosed with the virus?
The actual start of it all started on Thursday the 30th of April when we were sent for testing by Oby and Wigston Borough Council at the King Power Stadium. We both, me and my wife, were suffering from symptoms of the virus, which sort of caused us to sort of feel really dreadful. I had trouble sort of just staying upright. Wanted to always lie down and go to sleep all the time. But we went for testing. My wife was diagnosed within 4 days. She got her results on the Sunday. I was still waiting for results on the Wednesday, so I contacted the council again and said I think I needed to be retested because I think I probably did something wrong. And on the way out to that retesting at the Birstall Park and Ride that time, I was just going past the Cow and Plough in Oadby when I got a text message to say I was positive as well.
And I think, Paul, you've mentioned some of the symptoms already, but can I ask you to give a bit more detail around what those symptoms were and how they actually made you feel?
Yeah, okay. I mean, we started off on the Friday feeling aches and pains in all our muscles. We thought we were coming down with a cold, in all fairness, but it's rapidly progressed. For us feeling absolutely lousy. I mean, my wife lost her sense of taste and smell, which at that time was not recognised as symptoms of COVID, but has since been recognised as symptoms of COVID. That lasted for her for about a month before she actually got her taste and smell back. Me, I just sort of felt really lousy. And unfortunately, on top of it all, I got tonsillitis as well, which made me feel even doubly lousy. High temperature, I was up around the 39-40 mark, couldn't get my temperature down. We rang 111, asked for advice. We took that advice on board. My temperature did come down after about 4 days. We self-isolated, which we weren't at the time before because we were doing everyone shopping, but we did make a conscious effort to stay indoors, and we did that for a fortnight. And that's basically the only sort of medication or any sort of diagnosis we've actually done about it. We've not actually gone to see a doctor. We've not consulted doctors. We just sort of went through that isolation period, and it did prove useful, obviously, because my wife's a nurse. She gets tested every week, and she's been negative ever since.
So obviously, I mean, one of the things that you talked about there was that you followed the guidelines, and I'm assuming obviously you weren't hospitalised either because you mentioned you stayed at home. Is that right?
Correct. I mean, no, we never got to stage of hospitalisation. Or I did ask my wife at one stage, "Do you think I'm going to die of this?" Because right. I really felt that lousy. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And when did your recovery start? Obviously, the symptoms were quite dramatic for you both, it sounds like. When did the recovery start, Paul?
Well, I would say that Linda started to recover after 4 weeks. So, I mean, she did go back to work after 4 weeks because she's in a care home, so she had no choice. But me, I was 5.5 weeks off work before I started to feel anywhere near my normal self, although I am definitely not there yet. I mean, I was in the office only yesterday, and someone said, "You look a lot better, but you're still not yourself." And then that's the problem, is just trying to get back to normal. And no one forecast that this, at the beginning, this long-term COVID, as they call it, was a symptom that's going to be continuing. We just don't know. You just don't know how long it's going to take. I did get some advice off a customer who recommended some herbal tablets, and we're trying those, and they do seem to be helping. But I mean, it's just a long time thing. It's just taking ages.
And thanks for that, Paul. And you've talked about some of the side effects that you still have. Can you just give us a few of those side effects that you still have? I mean, obviously you had this in April, and we're now in September. What are some of the side effects that you still experience?
Lack of stamina. Trying to actually do some simple jobs, you get quite breathless. You end up sort of having to stop quite regular to actually get your breath. Fatigue is one things you sometimes you just don't even want to get up in the morning, but you know you've got to, because you've got to try and get back to normal. And brain fog is something that I've seen Timon sort of discussed on the internet, and I thought, yeah, that's what I've got. I've got a definite problem trying to think and concentrate. I can't.
And sorry, Paul, carry on.
No, go on.
I think one of the things I'd be interested in, I've heard, or we've heard a lot in the press about brain fog. Can you started to touch on what that actually means. Can you give a bit more detail around what that brain fog actually feels like to you?
Well, what I find is I can't concentrate and I can't think. I have to second guess myself on what I do for a living, obviously. It's a lot of legislation, and sometimes I'm trying to think of what the legislation is, and I just can't think what that terminology is. So, and the thing is you can be having a conversation and suddenly just lose all track of where you were. I mean, people can say they have suffered from something else as that happens to them, but it's never happened to me before. And the thing is you can be talking to somebody or having a conversation, and you'll say, I can't think of the word. I know what I want to say, but I can't think of the word, and that's not me. I mean, normally I'm quite literate, and it's just difficult trying to string a word together and then a sentence together, and you just lose it halfway through, which is probably what's happening with this video.
No, not at all. I think you're articulating exceptionally well, Paul, how COVID has affected you and your wife, and what the long-term effects of COVID are once you actually get the virus. So, I mean, you've touched a bit about how how it's making you feel at the moment. How are you now?
Well, I lost 1.5 stone when it all first started, which obviously is a good thing, but it's not the right way to lose it. And we've both lost our appetites. We haven't got the appetites. I mean, before we'd have a fairly large meal. I went out for a birthday meal the other day, and everyone else had the 3 courses, and I could only manage 2. And that's the problem. I mean, my weight's not gone up, which is a good thing, but I'm finding it difficult to actually have an appetite. I just can't. And for someone who's a foodie like me, it's not it's not good news, because I enjoy.
Go on.
Yeah. No. That's where I was going to stop. Sorry.
No, you don't have to say sorry at all. So, obviously we've talked about you getting coronavirus. We've talked about the symptoms and how it's still affecting you. So, and it's still very much with us on a day-to-day basis, and rates are continuing to be very high. How does it make you feel when you see people aren't following the guidelines? Well,
annoyed is one, frustrated is the other. I mean, if they actually had it, I mean, I was reading earlier about these people sort of saying it's all nonsense. I'm not one to try and make up things, and I've got it, and yes, I probably are not a typical case, but I find it very frustrating that they're not taking it seriously. This is something that if you don't take it seriously, okay, you might not feel any symptoms, you might not feel unwell, but if you go out socializing with other people, you could pass it on to somebody who's not going to recover. And okay, that's something that you have to live with. But the thing is that I've seen stories where people have come back. There was one guy that sort of said that it's a load of rubbish. I don't believe what they're saying. he went to Tenerife and he's come back with it. He's on an oxygen mask in hospital, and now he's telling a completely different story. And why does it have to get to that stage before you actually take any notice of what we're trying to tell you? At the end of the day, this is something that, yes, we're living with it short term. Until we get a vaccine, then I'm not going to be happy to travel on an aircraft. And I wear a mask when I go out. I protect myself as well as others, because at the end of the day, if you don't play your part, you can't have a clear conscience and say, well, I've done everything I possibly can. I got contacted by the NHS because I'd recovered from COVID-19, and they asked me to go for a donation for COVID convalescent plasma, which I gave. I've never given blood before. I didn't know what blood group I was. I find out that I'm in the 8% of the nation with one particular blood group. I'm high in antibodies, so they're desperate to get me back. So I'm going back every fortnight, which I'm very pleased and very appreciative of the council supporting me in that, because they allow me to go and give that donation to try and help other people. Now, if it wasn't something serious, why are they doing this trial to take the plasma? And I mean, there was about 10 of us there on Wednesday, taking our plasma to give to patients if they get this thing. If it's not serious, then you wouldn't put that sort of money into the project in the first place.
Paul, thanks so much for sharing your experiences with us. Hopefully this discussion will actually demonstrate to people how serious COVID is. It's out there, it doesn't discriminate, and it can affect anybody. And Paul, we wish you and your wife well in continued recovery. And as you say, it just demonstrates how important it is that everybody adheres to the guidelines, and it's down to us to make sure that we adhere to them as well. Thanks very much, Paul.
You're welcome. Thanks very much.